Welcome, listeners. I'm really excited about today's guest. I have Karen Bonnell. And what's really interesting about this guest is, I should have heard of her before because she's a well known author who helps with co parenting, but I actually learned about Karen through some clients. And I think that speaks volumes. We were working on their parenting plan, part of their divorce. And I always ask, have you done any research? Have you done any work on working together? Because one of my main driving passions about doing divorce mediations is helping parents well after, because we know that's so beneficial to the kids. But they mentioned the Co-Parenting Handbook. So, Karen, I'm so grateful that you're here, truly grateful from the bottom of my heart that you're taking the time to talk to my listeners. And if you wouldn't mind sharing your authentic story, because I think you started out as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. It looks like you're an author, you're a co-parenting coach, a divorce coach, a mediator. So please share with the listeners what led you down this path.
Oh, Lisa, thank you. And I love this opportunity. So thank you, all you listeners, for this chance to spend a few minutes with you. So my authentic story is, yes, I was licensed as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I worked as a psychotherapist for, close to 40 years. And I got a reputation for working with couples who had experienced a betrayal. So, really helping couples repair after affairs. And then I went through my own divorce. And the School of Hard Knocks is nothing, there's no teacher like it. And although I had been a therapist at that point for 25 years, and everyone would have said, "Oh my God, you must have known exactly what to do." The answer to that question was, I did not. I did not, in part because in the 90s, there still wasn't a ton of information about how to do divorce well. And both my child's father and I, we kind of defaulted into old technology, right? Anyway, long story short, in 2006, I had the opportunity to work with a couple who said, "We know you'll help us get divorced well. You help people stay together, you'll help us come apart." And I had been a major influence in my life had been the Compassionate Listening Project, which honestly is what drives a lot of what I do. And so anyway, I told those guys, "No, I don't do that. I help people stay together, but I've never done anybody's divorce." And they said, "I know our best friends told us you would say that." And they went after me 3 times when I finally said, "Okay, I'll help." And that's how I got started.
That's
Really working with
amazing. I
families.
mean,
Yeah, it was just such a powerful pivot. And I sort of coupled it with the piecework I'd been doing in the Compassionate Listening Project, which is, I think of it as, I'm doing my contribution to world peace one family at a time. If
mhm.
I can help one set of co-parents skillfully care for their children after sometimes the most traumatic, disruptive, stressful experience of their adult lives, then that is the gift. That is my honor. That's where my love shows up. So there you
See,
have
I
it.
knew I would love you. We are very, very much in line.
Ah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
so I love hearing that story. So you had people reaching out to you with this need, and you did it. You agreed, you did it, and it must have went well because it's your career now. And then what led you to writing a book and all of that?
Okay, well,
Mhm.
we all have our own experiences with that still small voice, right? And Lisa, I'm
Mhm.
guessing that you have some of those yourself. But I was walking into the office one Saturday morning in 2013 to see a set of co-parents, and I heard the voice say, "You should write it down." And what I had become aware of at that point, I'd been at it for a number of years, and I was telling the same teaching stories. I was teaching the same principles. I was providing the same structure. I was loving in the same way that I always love on couples, right? On parents. And I thought, oh my gosh, I went home that afternoon. This was in July of 2013. I went home that afternoon and I wrote down the outline of the first edition of the book. It was meant to be. That's all I can say. It was meant to be. And I
That,
proceeded
yeah,
to write it.
was it easy?
It was easy to write it in the sense that I really had been doing the work solidly since 2006. I was
Mhm,
immersed in those, what would that have been, 7 or 8 years, right?
mhm,
And so it was really just, uh, I don't know, capturing what I was doing and putting it on paper.
mhm.
And then a few years later, I independently published it in 2014. But then a few years later, Sasquatch Books, which is part of Random House, came to me and said, we'd like to, to have your book. So it was rewritten on the second edition. There's also the Audible edition. That's of the first book. I read it. I always tell parents, look, you're having trouble sleeping at night. Okay.
Yeah.
It happens during divorce. You're waking up. So you just click on the book. And I promise you, my voice will have you asleep in 15 minutes.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but I find you so intriguing because it sounds like you were just really open to whatever kind of came your way and you just went with it. And look at what you're doing. You're serving the world. And I love what you said, kind of one couple at a time, helping those children.
Right.
And as I told you, I ordered the book. I haven't had a chance to read it. I just got it like 2 days ago, but I've been looking through it. It's very comprehensive. And I love that. And I don't know if you know, but I have an online course that is a Minnesota parenting course, a parenting plan course. So it helps
Beautiful.
couples put together a parenting plan, and you can really do that in any state. I generally just do mediations in Minnesota, but this plan can be used all throughout. But I feel like this book along with that, and I can't wait to dig in. I mean, I am reading this and it will make me a better mediator. It will make
Mm.
my course better. So I appreciate it so much. And not to give away everything because people can go order this book like I did, but can you give us like some key takeaways or important things that are important to you or that you find that couples really enjoy about your book?
Yeah, Lisa, again, thank you so much for just a chance to share with people. The book is chocked full. I mean, seriously, chocked full of strategies, but it's also chocked full of, perspective. One of the things that happens is, it's rare that a couple arrives to the point of deciding to separate and divorce at the same time and in the same way. In other words, we often have the experience of one person is calling the finish line, or what we call the lever. And the other person may still be wishing to work on the relationship or wanting things to be different. And we sometimes think of them as the person, the leavee, the person left behind. And so the consequence of that is part of what happens in the divorce course from there, the process of separating and divorcing, is really allowing a window of time for them to sync up emotionally and to really understand each other's emotional path. So that's one of the things that it is the journey through separation for adults. Well, simultaneously, once a set of parents goes and talks with their children about the divorce, the children also have their journey through the separation and divorce. And so I want to help parents now, just as parents, not as divorcing intimate partners, because remember, we've got adults who are divorcing and having their own emotional experience. And then we have parents who need to stay available, what will become co-parents, right? We need parents to stay available to their children's emotional journey. And so the book really helps tease apart what's happening to me as an intimate partner from who do I want to be for my kids as a parent, and what are the skills I need to be the best co-parent I can be to my children's other parent. No longer my intimate partner, or soon not my intimate partner, but someone that I will spend the rest of my life in a very important relationship with. Like I say to parents, until death do us part. Who knew that was about parenting? We
Mhm.
thought that was about our love relationship. Well, No, the part that's until death do you part is if you've had a child together, married or not, you
Right.
are connected.
So I need to ask some advice because I do have a couple, and it's that story where she was ready to leave. He was not. He's very hurt. And I think that they're already living separate. They have one child. And how can I help them kind of, I think you called it teasing apart, so that he can focus on how to, because he's struggling with looking towards the future as a co-parent and keeps kind of looking back. And I had sent him maybe a therapist that he could talk to work through that piece. But
Beautiful.
how do you start to tease that apart?
Right. Well, one is, I'm guessing, Lisa, you're really good at this, but one of the things when somebody's really struggling is that we sometimes have to take a minute and just go right into that pain point with them, right? To be able to say to him, you are bereft, your heart is broken. It is hard for you to imagine how on earth you're going to be able to co parent with this woman who's just broken your heart, right? Go right into that pain point, and he's going to do exactly what you're doing, which is he's going to be nodding his head just like
Well, do you
this.
want to know something interesting? He denied it because they're both there. And
Yeah.
so I don't think
Yep.
he wanted to let me
Acknowledge or
know.
admit it.
No. So I
Here's
let
the
that
thing.
rest.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. It doesn't mean that you're not what I call ringing the bell or getting the bullseye. It doesn't mean you're missing the mark, in other words, right? And so if he's denying it, you go, okay, well, then you know what? Help me. Help me understand what's going to hold you back from being the best dad you can be to Brandon. And part of that is going to be being the most skillful co parent with Madeline for
Mhm.
Brandon. So you help me understand because I'm right here with you. I'm going to walk this with you. I'm going to help you get there. Right. So now I'm just going to then turn it on its head a little bit, call his bluff, because you and I both know he's suffering.
Mhm.
He hasn't grieved yet. He's defensive. And that's okay. Hey, listen, for everybody who's listening to this, that's the territory. This is where Lisa and I live. This is what we do. We sit in this fire. We work with the fire. We calm down the fire. And then we take those embers and we rebuild a family. It's this time it's going to be a two-home family.
Mhm.
We're not going to let it just lay there in ashes. We're going to cultivate something that's really going to help children thrive.
I love what you just said. Rebuild a family. The family isn't getting destroyed, it's getting
Right?
rebuilt a
It's
different
getting
way.
restructured. It's
Yeah.
just getting restructured.
Okay. Well, next, I can't help. I have to ask you because this is always, I try to give parents tips because it's so emotional
Right.
for when I'm not there with them and when
Right.
they're trying to communicate
Right.
and they're angry. They're
Triggered.
so angry yeah, they're triggered. That's the word I'm looking for. I have some tools, but I bet you have even more. Would you mind sharing some?
So, one thing that I find that's difficult when people are going through separation and divorce is that they want to communicate like they're married. And so we often have a conversation about how it really needs to be different now. And in fact, your poor nervous systems, both of you, I'm saying, both of you, your nervous systems need to settle down. So let's do a couple of things. Let's communicate less, not more. Let's make sure that everything we're communicating about is strictly about the kids right now. Now, I know that you're going through a divorce. You might want to be talking about property settlement and stuff. Okay, make sure that you set up that there's an agreement about that. Hey, I want to talk about the house. Are we going to sell the house? Okay, let's get an agreement that we'll have that conversation by email or on the phone or whatever, but let's have some boundaries. In that conversation, we're not going to talk about kids. Everything related to kids stays in kid conversations. So I help parents separate those two, domains, property settlement from kids. They don't belong in the same bucket, if you will, right? The
Yeah.
other thing is slow down every communication. Don't try and build Rome in a day. If you find you're getting heated, acknowledge it. You know what? I'm getting triggered. I'm going to step away. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'll be back
Mhm.
tomorrow. I'll be back whenever I'm going to be back. But don't bother using communication now, especially about your kids, to discharge a bunch of upset energy.
Right.
That's like fighting like you're married. Let's not do fighting like you're married.
And my guess is it's going to take some practice. If you
Amen.
haven't done it, saying, okay, I'm getting triggered right now. So I always also like to tell parents, go eat, be a little gentle with yourself. If you blow up,
Right?
you can realize what you've done. You can come back and say, I'm sorry. I really want to let you know when I'm starting to feel triggered. It's okay if you
Right?
fail because that's how you learn. But to be
Right.
aware I love that idea of I'm being triggered right now and to be okay if you slip up.
100%. People with belly buttons deserve a 15% error. So, just let's everybody be a little bit, like you said, more gentle, more compassionate, more understanding, but not just with ourselves, by the way. So, here are soon to be co parent in crime here. We're going to raise Brandon together for the rest of our lives, you and me. And you're the one who blows up. Am I going to take that to the bank now and use that as proof, Lisa, that you're a terrible co-parent and you're never going to change? Or am I going to say, whoa, I really hit a nerve, or we got into territory and Lisa wasn't ready for? What am I going to do with that? Because I have choices. I can use it to build resentment, or I can use it from a place of compassion.
I'm so glad you brought that up because here I'm going to become a better mediator. I haven't brought that up because of who I am, because I'm
Mhm.
hard on myself, where I'm always kind of thinking of the other person. And so I didn't even think through that for them to be gentle with the other person as well.
Right.
Hand the dog a bone. Is that what they say? I mean, let
Yeah.
it, so that's so interesting because sometimes we bring our stuff into this and we can't, you know what I mean? And I miss that. So that's really going to help me a lot to make sure, yeah, go easy on yourself. But also, if the other parent blows up, have compassion for that parent too.
Right, right. This isn't easy territory, and I find myself reminding parents that this isn't easy territory. And even though you might be having an easy window at the moment, maybe things are going really well for you, or you're feeling particularly solid. It's a wave. It might change next week, and we don't know where your co parent is. But what we do know, what you and I both know, Lisa, is that at the end of the day, the more I can help you be the best parent you can be for Brandon, the better Brandon is going to be. And so I don't lose sight of that. I don't feel
Mhm.
like if I help you figure out how to pack the overnight bag rather than put hands on hip and go, what kind of a parent are you that you don't know how to do the overnight bag? Right? Like I could go there. I
Mhm.
could get hands on hips and get all that, right? But instead, if I say, okay, let's talk about what Brandon needs in the overnight bag or what Brandon wants in his lunch. If I set you up to be the best co-parent you can be, that only serves Brandon.
Mhm.
That's not for me. That's actually not even for you. I'm going to do that. My motivation, everything I ask a co-parent to do for one another, my motivation is to do it for those kids. And they're really
Mhm.
clear about that. I don't, the ship has sailed on this relationship, this marriage. You've told me that, right? This ship has sailed. What hasn't sailed is how well the two of you work together to raise Brandon.
Mhm. And, although I've never worked with anyone who doesn't adore their children and love them and in their hearts want what's best for them,
Right?
I can't always get them there in a mediation because they can't help but when they're trying to think of the schedule, I keep thinking, what works best for Brandon? What do you think would be best for him? I can keep bringing it up. Do you have any tips, even for me or for co-parents, to kind of keep that focus on the child and your love for the child?
Yes, there's a couple of things that I would say, Lisa. So the first one I'm going to say is that parents often come to mediation, separation, and divorce with a lot of their own old experiences as children. I kind of want to know what those are, because a lot of times what's driving a parent's value around, well, I think Brandon needs to live with me every school night because Brandon needs X, Y, or Z, like, right. And they are just lock solid on what the solution is. And you as a mediator know this. We want to know, what interests are we serving underneath that solution? And is there
Mhm.
more ways to get there than that particular trail up the mountain, right? So that's one thing. I want parents to know that the research is clear. If I've got two mostly capable parents in front of me, this kiddo is going to benefit from a shared schedule, not a 50-50 schedule. Let's not equate those two things. Although a 50-50 schedule is a shared schedule, so is a schedule where that kidlet spends 5 out of 14 overnights every 2 weeks. But what we're really saying is enough time to feel at home with each of his parents or her parents, right? This is what we're after. So I want them to have that data point, because sometimes that really helps with some of the other things that go on. Now, the most important strategy that I'll use with parents early on is we actually do some goal setting at the beginning, and I ask them to do a little futurizing with me. And you may have this strategy as well already. But I say, okay, let's fast forward. In 20 years, Brandon and Stella are going to be sitting around the table because Stella has just received her master's degree in psychology. She's going to become a therapist, or she's going to become
Ah,
something. And we're all sitting around after graduation. And, Brandon and Stella start to roast the two of you, right? You're having a glass of wine or a cup of tea, and they start to roast you like young adults do, right? And there's not one of us that don't remember roasting our parents, God willing, they were still alive at the time, right? To make fun of them. I said, so they start to roast you. And then in a poignant moment, Stella changes the tone and she says, Mom and Dad, or mom and mom, dad and dad, by the way, parents, when you decided to get divorced, I was really scared. I didn't know what was going to happen. But the truth of the matter is, so here's the visualization I have them in. The truth of the matter is, when you divorced, the two of you were able to. The two of you were able to. And now I say to the parents, what's on that list? What
so
is
good.
it that you were able to do in this next 15 or 20 years that sets Stella and Brandon up to answer that question in a way that you will be proud of? Well, we'll be able to communicate about, Brandon's basketball lessons, or we were able to help Stella continue to do her robotics competitions, whatever it was. I want them to be as specific as they can in this moment about setting a platform, because then I say to them, every single thing we do from here on out, from this conversation forward, is toward that end, is to build that life across two homes for your children.
I love that. And Karen, I'm going to borrow that. I have something a
All
little bit
yours.
similar, but not that good, not that specific. So, yeah, no, for sure. See, you're making me a better mediator. You're helping my listeners. So I love this. And I can't believe the time is going so fast. I know. And at the end of my podcast, because I'm in my barn with my horses back there, I have what I call the saddle up segment, where I ask for just one tool or tidbit of advice, something listeners can do right now, moving forward, maybe to make their life better or whatever it is. You've given us a lot. Is there anything else you can add?
What I would say is I want parents to remember that what divorce breaks apart for a child, skillful co-parenting will rebuild. So your goal is to learn those skills. It can start with watching Lisa's work on how to build a parenting plan. Let's make sure that parenting plan is child-centered and it has all the guardrails that we need about how we're going to celebrate holidays and birthdays and who's going to do the peer birthday party and how's it going to work when we go on vacation in the summer. Let's make sure that parenting plan grows with your child, right? So let's do our homework. Let's read the Co-Parenting Handbook. Going to get a ton of support and strategies in there about how to do this well. So again, co-parenting is a set of skills. And if in your head you're listening and you hear yourself saying, I'll never be able to co-parent with that person over there because they've done so many bad things, what I want to say to you is co-parenting is not an option. The question isn't whether we're going to co-parent. The question is how skillfully will I show up? Will I show up as a co-parent? Co-parenting doesn't follow fifth grade playground rules. I'm only going to do it if you're going to do it, Lisa. I'm only going to be a good co-parent if you're a good co-parent. Nope, nope, nope. I can learn the skills. I'm going to show up. That's my gift to my children. It's the best I can do.
That's so, so good, Karen. Thank you so much. And if my listeners want to get in touch with you, for one, I know that you can get this on Amazon and
Correct.
Audible, the book. Where
Right.
else can they find you if they want a session or?
Yeah. At this point, I'm doing what are called one-time consults. Parents can call me. We do 90 minutes together. It's anything they want and need in terms of setting up the platform for their separation. Maybe they want to strengthen their co-parenting. Maybe they're dating again, Lisa, and they want to know how to do that well. I call it stepwise. Anyway, they are welcome to contact me through my website, Karen S. Bonnell, very easy, or Coach Karen in Kirkland. I live in Kirkland, Washington. Everybody knows about Kirkland because Costco is about a mile and a half from here.
Yeah.
But who would carry that toilet paper home? Um,
Uh,
anyway, yeah, they are welcome to.
well,
So,
wonderful. And we will have all your information in the show notes. So, Karen, I
yeah.
really want to thank you for being here today and for helping me get better and for you've given us new tools that we haven't heard of before. So I appreciate
Excellent.
you. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for listening to that quiet voice that led you to where you are.
Still a quiet voice. There you go.
Yes.
My absolutely my honor. Thank you.
Yes. Take good care.
Bye now.